Hello brothers and sisters, back again on Ahang Simulator channel. The growing world of the game, especially on the Android platform, has given rise to lots of genres that you can play. One game theme that should not be missed is the horror theme. Both movies and games, the horror genre is one of my favorite genres. With the challenges given, both playing games and watching horror films, it makes people curious and challenged. In addition to horror games, games that can be played without the need for an internet quota are also increasingly popular with gamers. Of course you can play games without a quota though. So what horror-themed offline Android games can you play? Here are 8 offline Android games. COLINA. Legacy still seems to be one of the most interesting games to play this year. Presented with slick graphics, this game presents an eerie atmosphere due to its dark visuals and the presence of terrifying creatures. You will play as a teenager named Alex who wakes up in his grandmother's house alone. Everyone in the house disappeared somewhere. The feeling is that something is watching. You too have to lead Alex to escape from the unknown. The mystery and suspense presented by COLINA. Legacy makes it still worthy of being included in the list of horror games that you will play. Alien. Isolation that will frighten you with the spooky, ferocious aliens. It is told that an astronaut named Ellen Ripley made a promise when she was about to leave Earth to return home and celebrate her son's 11th birthday. But apparently he could not keep the promise. 15 years later, daughter Amanda Ripley enters the Sevastopol space station to solve the mystery of her mother's disappearance. In his quest he must face an unknown threat. You will keep it to survive even with less equipment. Granny is a horror game franchise that presents the horror of the host, namely Granny and the scary grandpa. They are both told to have a new house that is as tense as in the previous series. As usual, you should try to run away from their new home. Granny has very sharp hearing. He'll know where you are when you drop anything on the floor or a footing that makes the board make a sound. While Grandpa couldn't hear, he took great pleasure in shooting any moving object. Not to mention there is a second grandson, Slender, who often appears suddenly and unexpectedly. You have to run away from his eyes as much as possible. Granny 3 is a game that brings suspense throughout the game. Ice Scream 6 is the next best horror game that you should play in 2022. This latest series from the Ice Scream franchise will continue the problems that occurred in the previous series. In the previous series, one of the children who was kidnapped by an ice cream seller's car, Jay teamed up with his friend Mike to escape from the engine room to the control room. But there is still a friend who is left behind, namely Charlie. Your task this time is to control Charlie to be able to escape with the help of Jay. The Dead Zone 3 is an adventure game that offers a challenging horror feel. You will be one of the few survivors of a terrible nuclear disaster. You are trying to unravel the mysteries of your past and try to save the world from a possible second nuclear catastrophe. In this endeavor you must explore a remote forest filled with mutants and dogs exposed to nuclear radiation. The Dead Zone 3 mixes 3 genres very well. In the cinematic section, you need to click on certain areas to survive the events that occur. Then in the part between levels you have to interact with the NPCs and collect clues to solve small puzzles with the objects you find. Lastly, this game will truly become a survival horror game when you have to go to a contaminated area, where you have to do everything in your power to escape the horrors of nuclear war. The gameplay is also supported by good graphics quality, so the Dead Zone 3: Dark Way is the best horror game that you should try this year. Endless Nightmare 2. Hospital is a game that is set in a hospital, so this game already has 1+ point for being the best horror game. Plus it's not an ordinary hospital. Your character, James, suddenly wakes up in a haunted hospital. He fell for it while investigating the case of the disappearance of many people in Oak Town. You will find a lot of dangerous and surprising things throughout the game. Slender. The Arrival was already popular as a really scary horror game when it first came out for the PC platform in 2013. Now you can play it on Android devices. This game has almost all the elements that should be in a horror game. The first is the presence of the scary figure of Slenderman, who has become a byword, so you are suggested to be afraid even though you have never met him. Then this game manages to build a scary atmosphere and a fear of helplessness in the minds of players. Imagine you have to look for a clue in the form of a piece of paper that is located very randomly in an open area without any lighting other than a flashlight in your hand. The visualization is reinforced by the presence of a successful backsound that makes goosebumps. Another thing is that the expectations that have been built about this scary figure are in line with reality. Slenderman was exactly what people were talking about, dressed in a neat suit and had no face. He doesn't hesitate to reveal his form without warning, and you can't do anything but run. This should be a really scary thing. There is a horror game from Indonesia called Misguided. This game will remind you of Dreadout, which is also produced by Indonesian developers. Both have similarities in terms of gameplay and character design. Even the main character Misguided is also a girl in a white and gray high school uniform. In addition to uniforms, there are many local elements that are the spices of this one game. At the beginning, you have seen the room settings that are very familiar to the eyes of our society. The story itself is about a high school boy named Sylvia who is looking for her best friend in a mysterious and haunted place.